Greetings and thanks for joining us once again for another bi-weekly update. My name is Carlos Salinas, and I am the Regional Director for the U.S. Soybean Export Council in the Americas. A pleasure to be here with you once again. Before I get started, and as we always do, I like to recognize USEC's wide and diverse membership. As many of you know, within this membership, we have soybean processors, soybean exporters, seed companies, equipment manufacturers, railroads, surveyors, brokers, among many other very important stakeholders and funding sources. We never forget the support and the contribution that we receive from the U.S. soybean farmer. Without that support, this presentation would not be possible. For good order's sake, I'm recording this on Thursday, September 12th, after the USDA report. We will not talk about the USDA report in this presentation, but the data is as of that point in time. We have a brief agenda. We're going to talk about South American weather, supply chain issues. We're going to talk about the situation on the Mississippi River, talk about the Panama Canal, and then we'll evaluate FOB NOLA values for soybeans in the U.S. So let's go ahead and get started. And before I dig into South America, I think it's important to keep in mind some basic information. And this information is provided by Oil World. As you well know, Oil World is a very well-recognized analyst and economist in the oils and fats business. And according to their data, you can see the difference on crop production between the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere. And what I wanted to highlight is the variability that you have in crop production from one year to the next. And there's no better thing to measure variability in standard deviation. And one standard deviation in a North American crop production is about 3.4 million metric tons based on this data. When we look at South America, one standard deviation in their crop production is about 13 million metric tons. Certainly not only by the size, but certainly the volatility that you have in production due to different climatic conditions. So we are beginning to enter the planting season in Brazil. And I think it's important to, again, keep this in mind, because when we talk about a shift in production, this could play a key role. So let's share some of the data with you. This map that we have highlights the precipitation anomalies from August 10th through September 8th. And you can see that not only did we come with a lack of precipitations to this window, but you can see that we haven't seen what we expected. We have an anomaly, and that anomaly is leading us to have a drought in some important regions of Brazil. I'm going to focus in the basically two states and a country, Mato Grosso do Sul, and Bolivia. So why do I want to highlight Mato Grosso? Well, Mato Grosso produces about 46 million metric tons. That is 22-23. Their crop was lower in 23-24, but I think 46 is I'm going to say a good hopeful production estimate. When you take a look at Mato Grosso do Sul, 14 million metric tons, and Bolivia about 3.7 million metric tons. We all know that last year, because they had a drought already, those numbers were lower, so most likely they might be lower this year as well. But when you take a look at those two states and that country, Bolivia, we have a production of about 64 million metric tons. It's quite significant how much production is focused in that region. And how do we compare? When you compare that to USDA's forecasted soybean exports, not the ones that came out today, I don't think I even looked at it. I don't think there were many changes, but it's about 50 million metric tons. You can say that this region represents certainly more, and by far, of what U.S. soybean exports are in a year. So an important region to monitor. The information I have here, I was able to get it from by looking at the site of the Mato Grosso Institute of Ag Economics. They always provide great information. Funny enough, their information came from NOAA, which is good to know, and it is as of September 2nd. But you can see that they're already concerned, and they're highlighting, right, the precipitation anomalies forecasted for September and October, and probably an area of concern with them, certainly Mato Grosso being the largest producing state. Other articles are already talking about the lack of rains are delaying the planting of corn and soy. So again, something that we have to keep in mind. When you take a look at other journals in Brazil, Globo Rural, which is a very good journal to monitor information on agriculture in Brazil. They say, when will it rain in Brazil? And they say very isolated showers may occur, but they don't solve the extreme drought. And according to the Institute of Meteorology in Brazil, INMET, there's no expectation that regular rains will return anytime soon to the regions most affected by the intense heat and drought. So I think important information to share with you. One thing that did surprise me, and again, this information comes from the same institute, the National Institute of Space Research, INPE. You can see the amount of fires we have seen in Brazil, and they can be forest fires, or they can be fires on different areas of Brazil, including soybean production areas, quite significant, over 40,000 fires spotted, which I believe it's a record, if I heard correctly. So again, typically fire is used again to expand some areas, but when you combine that with an intense drought, obviously that's not good. In other parts of Brazil, obviously, I think it was actually intentional by individuals of let's say with no good intents, let's put it that way, or pyromaniacs in that sense. But anyway, it's unfortunate to see this. When you expand this and you get a same map from Bloomberg, you can see the amount of fires, and you can see how this expands actually even to Bolivia, right? Bolivia has again a lot of fires in many of their forest areas, pasture lands, and same thing in Paraguay. So a concerning situation, I would say, to the point that according to IQ Air, the air quality in many of these areas are either very unhealthy to hazardous. And I think you have to be cautious, right, to have this amount of intensity in these fires in that region. This map is kind of interesting because it measures the CO2 concentration in parts per billion by volume. And it is difficult to see. I was in Bolivia last week, and I saw some of this, and I could tell you it wasn't easy to breathe, right? Pretty nasty stuff. And Brazil, and the outskirts of Brazil, by a very well-known newspaper, Folha de Sao Paulo, they highlight, difficult to breathe is what the article says. And then this is a picture in Santa Cruz, Bolivia, again showing some of the smoke that has been seen. Sad, very unfortunate, and I hope rains come in soon to resolve this to some extent. And rains are expected, but again, I think it's the information is that it's not going to be consistent. They might get some rains to help here and there, which would be very welcome. So according to Folha de Sao Paulo registers the worst air quality in the world today. Bolivia declares state of emergency. And this is interesting, an article on the Wall Street Journal that they highlight drought strains Brazil's hydropower supply, raising energy costs. You have to keep in mind that much of the electricity in Brazil, particularly in the south and the southeast part of Brazil, southwest part of Brazil, they rely on hydroelectric power. And some of those reservoirs today are an average of 57%, when they were at 68% in June, and they were 78% last year, right? So they're beginning to take measures to be able to try to replenish those reservoirs, which means that many of the rivers that actually feed to the Paraná River that feeds into Argentina, right? And they will actually probably be receiving less water, which you have to question navigation conditions in that river. I have already heard that in the Paraguay River, right, navigation is becoming very difficult because very low water levels. So again, this translates, unfortunately, to increased costs, right, to the end users. It's a situation to monitor. Let's talk a little bit about supply chain, which is somewhat related to the conditions that we're seeing in South America. This article is put together by the P&I Club. The P&I Club is a protection and indemnity club. It's a mutual insurance group for ship owners, operators, and covering liabilities like crew injuries, cargo damage, oil spills, collisions, etc. And they generally keep their membership, let's say, and their customers up to speed. And they state river levels in the Amazon basin for August have hit record low compared to historical data. Ministry of Defense predicts a severe drought, the highest level on the drought scale for the Amazon basin. So let's talk a little bit about, this is a picture, obviously, of the situation that you see today. This comes from actually the Brazilian government puts this together. Again, it's highlighting that river levels are, registering some of the historical lows, and you can see the unfortunate situation impacting communities, certainly in those areas, as they try to get goods and they try to get actually water. So let's take a look at the Amazon River. Keep in mind the Port of Manaus is here. We'll talk about the drought conditions in the Port of Manaus, but that's where the Rio Negro, which comes from here, connects with the Amazon River, obviously to make a larger Amazon River that has become, let's say, a major exporting channel for the most recent developments in Brazil. Over here, I highlight locations which are more commonly known, Itacoatiara and Santarém. There are many other facilities, not only these rivers and other rivers as well, that feed grain, soybean meal, and corn, certainly to the export markets and export terminals in the mouth of the Amazon River. Give me 1 second, please. I want to get a quick sip of water. Just a second. All right. So obviously, we knew that last year we already had a situation. I showed a video when we had some barges that were stuck navigating the Amazon River. It's not an easy task, and the companies that do it do a very good job. It's quite impressive, some of the technology they use, but it's very challenging. The water levels for August in Manaus, in the Port of Manaus, by the Port of Manaus Authority, tells that those levels of draft have gone to 20 meters, right? And last year, we already had issues, but last year, we ended August with about 26 meters, and certainly 2022 with a little bit higher numbers. So we know that early September, we're close to 18 meters already. So it will be an issue of concern navigating and shipping those soybeans out. There's no doubt in my mind. Unless conditions improve drastically, I think it will be very challenging navigating those waters. We'll have to see. We hope it's not the case because we know the world needs this, but you need to be aware. Obviously, different articles on StoneX put together by X put together by Reuters, not StoneX, put together by Reuters, highlighting the same thing. And I'm sure come next week, you may likely hear more news about this as well. So we're not alone. The Mississippi River is also having issues. I think it's important to highlight. I want to share those with you as well from a supply chain, not to alarm you, but I think it's important that you be aware. So far, barge freight between St. Louis and New Orleans, Louisiana is about $30 a metric ton. These are, I'm going to say, relatively spot rates, according to Bloomberg. $30 a metric ton. That is slightly higher than 2023 at this time. It is very seasonal because generally water levels, drafts tend to go down. Now, last year we went as high as almost very close to 60. We hope that 2022 doesn't repeat. Certainly we go to those extreme levels over $100 a metric ton. So again, we'll have to monitor. When you take a look at the water levels in this thick blue line, we can see that water levels in St. Louis have certainly dropped quite a bit. This seems to be stabilizing right here. Again, 2022, 2023 were worse, so not as bad. I think in the U.S., we have very good barge capacity, and we have the expertise, and our barge companies have the know-how on how to navigate these waters very well under low water conditions. They are experts at it, and I'm hopeful that while it's sad to see a hurricane coming into the southern part of the U.S., I guess the silver lining is that it may replenish some of the low water levels that we have in some areas, which could be a positive sign from a water level and transportation perspective. So again, something to keep in mind. Let's talk about the Panama Canal. Not all is negative news. I don't want to sound drastic. I'm trying to remain as objective as I can, but I think it is important that our customers be aware of the conditions in the world right now so they can make appropriate decisions and manage the risk properly. When you take a look at the Panama Canal, I think we have good news. Today, the water levels in the Panama Canal are about 86 feet. If you take a look at the 5-year average, it's about 84.2 feet. So we are above the average already. and certainly very close to what typically we have in December. I would imagine that they're going to try to build the water levels in Lake Gatun higher as much as they can with the precipitations, obviously, and we should be in a very good position as we begin the dry season come February through June of next year. So we can say that the Panama Canal is somewhat normalized, but again, we have to be very cautious with these climatic conditions. Changing gears, changing subjects, let's talk about U.S. FOB soybean basis, what has happened over the last maybe not 2 weeks, I would say 3 weeks. I'm not talking about South America because I believe South America is pricing itself out, is really not competing for many reasons. But when you take a look at the cargo market, FOB NOLA, at least, I'm sorry, I didn't have time to look at the PNW, but FOB NOLA, we've seen that those values have certainly appreciated. We've gone from, I'm going to say, 83 over the NOV on August 21st to September 11. We're going to 118. Obviously, a very good uptick on those bases. And when you take a look at the November and you take a look at those defer windows, we can see that those numbers have also appreciated. So FOB basis has gone up, a good $12 a metric ton, $13 a metric ton. Again, these are not bids or offers. It's an estimate. So we have to be fair with our provider. And I should say, and I didn't quote it here, and I apologize, but certainly we rely on AgCom from Argentina for this information. I'd like to thank them very much. I should have quoted the source right here. I did not do so. I apologize. So I think that's all I had to share with you. I hope the information provided was of value. Please continue to send us your feedback. I appreciate all the feedback that I've heard. And certainly, while we take the positive feedback, tell us things that we can improve as well to make this presentation more valuable for you. And I look forward to talking to you in a couple of weeks from now. Take care.